It is 7:01 p.m. If we could please call roll, Mr. Canellis?
Here.
Ms. Carasola, Ms. Carr,
Here.
Mr. Corey, Mr. Hayward,
Present.
Ms. Scarpelli, Ms. Stevenson,
Here.
Ms. Rendell,
Here.
Dr. Robinson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Calvez, if you could lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Adequate notice of meeting in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 231. Notice of tonight's meeting was mailed to the Record and the Ridgewood News on January 9th, 2024. Notice of this meeting was also mailed to the Borough Clerk and was posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office in the Administration Building on the same date. Ms. Carr, if you're able to read the mission statement, please.
The Glen Rock School District, founded on principles of education in partnership with a supportive community, provides an exceptional education to all students to cultivate resilient, responsible, and engaged global citizens.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carr. Before we begin the business of our meeting, I think it's very important that we take a moment to recognize the impact that Ms. Wendy Roche had on our community. I have prepared a statement just to really recognize just the impact that she's had on our students, as well as the impact that she's had amongst her colleagues here, and that she'll be deeply missed. On April 22nd, 2024, Glen Rock Public Schools lost one of our own. Mrs. Wendy Roche, longtime GRPS art teacher, unexpectedly passed away at a young age of 56 with her husband and her children by her side. For more than 2 decades, Wendy, a dedicated educator, devoted her time to teaching art, inspiring the imaginations of countless students, and leaving a lasting impression on so many who went through the Glen Rock Public School system. Wendy began her time in Glen Rock at Clara E. Coleman Elementary School in 2006. She worked there until 2014 and then split her time between both Coleman and the middle school from 2016 to 2020. She taught at Glen Rock Middle School from 2021 until 2022 and then moved to the high school in September of 2022. Having resided in Ridgewood and worked in the Glen Rock district for a number of years, many of Wendy's colleagues were also very close friends. Mrs. Michelle Giorlando, the middle school high school principal, reiterated that Wendy will be greatly missed. Mrs. Roche was known to be a talented artist and teacher who inspired her students and colleagues to express themselves creatively, to pursue their dreams, and ultimately to be the best versions of themselves. It was also stated that her kindness and compassion, coupled with her dedication to the arts and to the Glen Rock School District, made her an outstanding role model and a very well-respected professional. Wendy's colleagues in the art department further shared that teaching alongside her was an absolute joy. From the moment that she joined our team at Glen Rock High School, she seamlessly integrated and became an invaluable part of our community. Her infectious spirit and genuine care for others made her not only an outstanding teacher, but also a very cherished colleague. Her willingness to always lend a helping hand and her enthusiasm for embracing new challenges were truly admirable qualities. Wendy's impact on her students was profound, and many have expressed how deeply special she was to them. Wendy radiated beauty both inside and out, her kindness touching the lives of all who knew her. Her absence leaves a void that will be keenly felt at the Glen Rock High School. We feel very fortunate to have Wendy in our lives and will forever miss her radiant smile, end quote. It has been made clear that art was not just a job for Wendy, it was her passion. Alongside her teaching career, she pursued her own creative endeavors, taking on public and private commissions for murals, for paintings, and collages. Her art and her legacy will endure, particularly within the walls of Coleman Elementary, Glen Rock Middle School, and Glen Rock High School. No public services are being held, but the family will host a celebration of Wendy's life at Felina in Ridgewood on June 1st from 4 to 7 p.m., and all are welcome. I would like to invite any other members of the board, if they have anything to say, to express themselves, and then we'll have a moment of silence. All right. If we can just have a moment of silence honoring Miss Wendy Roche and her dedication to this community and to her family. Thank you. As difficult as it may be to go and transition from that to the business of the meeting, I think we are able to do that and keep Wendy in our hearts and keep her family in our hearts and support them as we can. All right. Sharia, I know it's hard to follow that up, but I am also excited to hear what you have to report to us. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few events from this month to report. April 11th marked the beginning of marking period 4. Despite the academic uproar with AP exams around the corner, students of all grade levels are eagerly preparing for upcoming events from sophomore semi to junior and senior prom to graduation. The entirety of the student body is excited to end the year off strong. Upperclassmen students were excited about the Glen League of Women Voters coming to our school on Monday, April 15th for all parts of the school day to help students register to vote, answer questions about upcoming elections, and to recruit more league members. Throughout the month of April, guidance counselors visited junior English classes to give in-depth presentations on college essay writing process. On April 16th, the high school Latin classes went on a trip to the Met Museum in New York City for the second year in a row. They were able to explore the entire museum and observe the art on display in all the different sections that the museum hosts. But the focus was primarily on Roman art and culture to contextualize what they are learning in class. Ms. Moline and Mr. Kelly, the high school and middle school Latin teachers, were also there to thoroughly explain what the students were observing to expand knowledge on Roman art and culture. The students had a great time and were very excited to attend this trip for a second time. On April 17th, Harrison Wortley from the class of 2025 was nominated for NorthJersey.com's Athlete of the Week for track and field. On the 18th, 19th, and 20th of April, the Glen Rock High School Theater Company presented Trap in a true crime podcast style with a supernatural twist ideal for ages 12 and up. It was a very successful production, and as always, they worked tirelessly to make this possible. On April 21st, there was a Grad Ball Spring Boutique fundraiser at Glen Rock High School Stadium lot where 20% of the benefits supported the 2024 Grad Ball efforts. NJSLA science testing for the junior class will take place today and tomorrow. Additionally, NJSLA testing for grades 6 through 8 will take place from April 29th through May 3rd. Students who are not testing are looking forward to a week of delayed openings. As of today, William Corey from the class of 2025 has been nominated for Lacrosse Player of the Week and is currently the nominee with the most votes. Lastly, spring sports teams such as track, soccer, lacrosse, and baseball have been very successful thus far and strive to continue this success for the remainder of their seasons. That's it. And the students are very upset to hear about Mrs. Roche, and we all send our condolences to the family. Thank you.
Thank you for your support, Sharia, and thank you for your presentation today. All right. Moving on next, I need a motion to open the public hearing. Ms. Calvez, seconded by Mr. Hayward. So the presenters today would be Dr. Charleston as well as Mr. James Canellis. And, what? Oh, call roll. Okay.
Yeah.
If we could call roll.
Ms. Calvez,
Here.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Corey,
Present.
Mr. Hayward,
Yes.
Ms. Scarpelli,
Here.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Rendell,
Yes.
Dr. Robinson.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
we are open.
Thank you very much. So looking forward to this presentation. Mr. Canales, based on everything that you've done up to this point, I'm really excited for your budget presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for the opportunity to present the 24-25 budget for the Glen Rock School District. We thought the best place to start was with the process. So believe it or not, yes, it is a 5-month process to do a school budget. We began back in October in engaging with our various stakeholders and budget owners. That's our principals, our supervisors, our directors. We had them prepare their baseline budgets for the coming year. Those budgets were then aggregated and reviewed, and then meetings were held with each budget owner by Dr. Charleston and myself, where at a very granular level, we reviewed those budgets as well as their requested projects, equipment, and individual requests for new programs. At that point then, post our conversations, the budgets were once again reaggregated, and we were ready with a draft budget for the Board of Education. It was presented to the board in early February. We answered any questions. Dr. Charleston provided an overview of our expenditures as well as the impact on our tax levy. And then it stayed with the board for a couple of weeks, and then we ordered the preliminary budget, which was voted upon, approved, sent to the county, approved, and here we are with our final budget presentation for the year. I skipped over our district goals because it leads into our next slide. One of the items that Dr. Charleston and I spent a lot of time on was ensuring that the budget supported our underlying district goals and objectives. And so we took our 5 goals and we synthesized them to a single word and then came up with how does the budget support those items. So for instance, security was our #1 goal. And in terms of security, we are adding in this budget 2 elementary school greeters. That will bring us to 4. So we will have a full-time presence in all of our elementary schools. We've also extended the time, the hours of the day that are worked by our 2 middle school, high school greeters. And this will allow us to extend coverage in the building into the latter part of the afternoon and early evening. In addition, we ensured that there were funds available for any items identified in the recently completed security assessment that was presented to the board in the last few meetings. Our second goal revolved around community communications. This budget supports the full-time director of community relations that we share with the Paramus School District. It also supports her new communications plan that she has been developing and had appraised the board at our last meeting. This budget ensures that any of her initiatives will be funded. Most importantly, our instructional goal, we have new textbooks coming into play for next year. That is a new pre-calc, new pre-calc AP, new middle school science, and at the elementary level, new phonics textbooks and related programs. The budget also continues our support of professional development for our teachers, as well as our ongoing efforts for curriculum development and writing. We're also adding some instructional positions. In fact, 2.5 full-time equivalents. That includes a new special ed teacher, 2 unassigned school teachers, and a .5 middle school art teacher, offset by 1 world language teacher. That .5 middle school art teacher brings the middle school instructional level to one equivalent of one full-time equivalent, which will allow us to have additional offerings in our middle school and reduce class size. Climate and culture, our wellness rooms are funded and the great work that they continue to do, as well as the support of our social and emotional learning curriculum from grades K through 9, and K through 8, and then again 9 through 12. Our financial goal this year revolved around our Energy Savings Improvement Plan, or our ESIP. And I'm happy to report that on May 22nd, we should be closing on approximately $3.8 million of energy savings refunding bonds. Those proceeds will be rolled out over an 18-month period to complete all the initiatives that are going to equate in the savings to repay those bonds. The first payment on those bonds is actually in July of '25, therefore not a part of our current budget. But I did want to highlight two non-objectives, but are financial in nature, and that the board is continued its contribution into our capital reserve this year, as we have for the past couple of years. And this really helps us in maintaining our facilities and having the ability to complete the projects that we recently approved in terms of the home ec room, the lower field renovations, the stairs in the back. So we're really excited about that. And this year, we created a maintenance reserve as part of our budget. And with our maintenance reserve, it creates funds for those kind of things that pop up during the year that are maintenance and repairs related. So for example, this year we had an issue with our stage up here at the high school. The maintenance reserve would be a place for us to go for funds to finance the remediation without taking out of our current program. So we're really excited about that for next year. Any budget for a school should start with enrollment. The Glen Rock School District has really been experiencing flat enrollment over the last couple of years. And as you can see, we're predicting an additional 41 students for next year. About this time 5 years ago, the board had commissioned a demographer study to project enrollment for a 5-year period. We are within 3% of that initial forecast, and we're due for a new demographer study. So our budget includes the commissioning of a study next year that will project us out for the next 5 years, which will guide our budgets and decisions as we move forward. The next slide really just takes our enrollment and breaks it down by school, where you can see it's relatively flat, with the largest increase occurring at our middle school, where we're adding 30 students. So where does our budget go? 69% of our budget is spent on salaries and benefits. 12% is spent on special education mandates and services. Another 9% goes to upkeeping our buildings and utilities, leaving only 10% for truly discretionary spending. And that covers everything. So on a $59 million budget, 10% is $5.9 million, or $2,300 a student to cover materials, books, sports, clubs, you name it. So it's not a real driver in our overall costs, so we really pay a lot of attention to where we're spending those dollars in order to achieve the maximum potential from those dollars. We also wanted to look, or I wanted to look, are we still spending money proportionately year over year amongst our major cost drivers? And so, as you could see, our year over year proposed budget is in fact essentially flat to last year, and probably if you looked at this chart for a couple of years going back, it probably indicate the same exact percentages, with instruction clearly leading the pack on the percentage of total budget that it consumes. So at a very high level, here is our general fund budget for the 24-25 school year. And you can see that our variances from last year's approved budget, now they fluctuate from 0 to 7% on the positive side, and as far as a reduction of 4% in transportation. So it's driving this $59 million budget. Number one, instruction. It's up $1 million, or 4%. And here we're just seeing the inflationary pressures on real wages. We're seeing that across the board. As far as health benefits, which account for $351,000 change, or 4%, we have two things going on here. So the first is the post-COVID effect. So during COVID, people weren't going to the doctor. Now they are going to the doctor. They're being diagnosed with ailments that could have been diagnosed earlier, and they're costing more. That's resulting in increased claims rates that we're experiencing, as well as all the other schools in New Jersey that participate in the New Jersey health plan. So that is driving premiums up. In addition, the state has ran the insurance program such that 2 years ago, or perhaps 3 years ago, we were flat on our premiums for 2 years. Then they came through last year with a huge 12% increase. Because they had kept premiums flat and because they even had a premium holiday, I believe 4 years ago, the fund is underfunded, no pun intended, and thus premiums have to go up in order to correct the discrepancies within the fund. So not only did we see an increase this year, but we're also anticipating an increase next year. Now, the last two categories, while they're under cost drivers, I look at them more as investment drivers. So the first is administration, which is up $368,000 or 7%. It's almost entirely driven by IT initiatives, both in infrastructure, upgrades, replacement, and/or equipment. So what we're seeing is that as systems become older and they're not supported, it leaves us susceptible for culprits in terms of hacking our system. So we've been updating our closets periodically. And also, we're seeing increased investments in equipment as technology plays a larger role in the classroom experience. And lastly, the licensing of some of the products that run our system are increasing well beyond the inflationary pressure that we see. Lastly, we have buildings and grounds. Here also, I consider this an investment's up $313,000 or 15%. And this is because we're doing more projects this summer than typical. We're unveiling a 3-year plan, which will have every elementary school classroom painted within the next 3 years. We're doing a new floor on the stage at Central. We're adding a split unit in the world language office, which previously had no climate control. So we're really trying to upgrade the facilities and bring them to where we believe they should be, given our district and the needs of the students and staff. So we continue to also see inflationary pressure across not only buildings and grounds, but across all of our spending categories. And so even where we're not highlighting an increase in the cost, do realize that our spending power is reduced as a result of the inflationary pressures. So the opposite side of expenditures, obviously, are revenues. And I thought it was important to show the taxpayers that, what looks like a bad slide, that you support 94% of the expenses in your district and the state only funds 6%. This might be me being naive, but I look for the silver lining in most things. This helps us prepare for when the state reduces overall aid. Because we're not heavily dependent upon the state's funding, we can pivot quite easily. And really not be at the mercy of state aid. So I actually think this is a pretty good thing for us moving forward. So here are our 4 general revenue categories. Our tax levy for the 24-25 school year will be $52.9 million, up 3.4%, and we'll talk about what makes up that 3.4% in the next slide. Our state aid is up $292,000 to $3.7 million. The increase on our state aid this year was approximately, $292,000 versus the $453,000 that we were up last year. And the reason why that increase is declining is because this was the final year of the S2 legislation, which was transferring state aid from districts that had been historically overfunded to districts that had been historically underfunded. So this being the last year, this is the last increase we will see, and we anticipate state aid being flat moving forward. Our fund balance contribution to the overall budget remains constant at $1.5 million. This is essentially excess surplus in the previous years that help us balance our budget. And lastly, we have our local sources, which are up 14% to $924,000. This is primarily driven this year by non-resident tuition and tuition-paying students in our special ed programs. So we're happy to have that revenue stream and look to potentially expand it. Again, let's take a look at the drivers here. So we talked about the tax levy. We all know that there's a 2% cap on the tax levy that would have allowed us to increase taxes by $1 million. Because our health insurance premium was so high, increase was so high, the state allows for an adjustment above 2% that you can take against your tax levy cap. In our case, that was worth $264,000. Lastly, we've used some bank cap. So what's bank cap? Bank cap is money that is accumulated over the last 3 years when we did not go up to the full 2% cap. And then you must use that money over the next 3 consecutive years. So of that $453,000, 120 of it originates from 3 years ago, which would have been expiring, so we use that, plus an additional, couple $100,000 to balance us out. Fear not, we still do have $185,000 left of bank cap for future budgets. So we haven't left ourselves barren there, but again, I think that's indicative of the inflationary pressures on all of our costs as we move forward. We talked about state aid and that it's the last year of S2 and that we anticipate it being flat moving forward. We talked about other revenue, local sources where it's driven by tuition, but in there's increased student fees for things like sports and technology. And lastly, we talked about a flat fund balance. The last piece that makes up the overall tax allocation for the year is our debt service. And our debt services are payments on previously issued debt, of which the district has 2 offerings that are out there. They have their initial 2008 offering that was refinanced in 2016, and then your referendum from 2019. And we can see that our payments are relatively flat to last year, with really no noticeable increase. An item to note, however, is that for the past few years, we've been supplementing the debt service with savings from the 2019 referendum, right, at about $500,000 a year. We've included that same $500,000 as it's been identified up there as referendum savings, and we anticipate being able to do that for the next 4 years. At the end of those 4 years, then that burden will then fall back to the taxpayer. So here's a quick chart where we could see where our tax increases have been. That is the levy increase, not the rate, the levy increase. We're looking at 3.4, with that bottom line there, this year, which is slightly lower than last year's 3.42. But as you could see over there in 2020 through 2023, where you see those 1% increases, that's where that excess cap or bank cap was accumulated and now being used as we see prices increasing and costs rising. When you factor in our debt service, which was essentially flat, you can see that the overall increase on the actual tax levy falls to 3.27%, slightly lower than last year. So the slide, I guess that's of most importance to folks. Well, what does this mean to your tax rate? So if we look at the 2023 tax year and the 2024 tax year, we can see that our rate is going to increase to 2.225% from 2.71%, or a 0.054% increase. We got from the tax assessor's office the average assessed home here in Glen Rock, which was $587,000. If you multiply that by the rate increase, the average home will see an increase of about $317. And that concludes our budget presentation for 24-25. I'll gladly entertain any questions.
All right. Thank you so much for this amazingly thorough presentation. And thank you for the work that you've done over this first year for you. I know it's a challenge always taking over anybody's work, and you've made this transition a lot easier and a bit less stressful for us as we really, really want to maintain services, but without making dramatic changes to the taxes. I'll say I have a question, and pardon my ignorance because I don't necessarily, speak in the finance world. You mentioned referendum savings. What are referendum savings, and why do you anticipate that they may change?
Sure. So when the referendum, which I believe was for $14.7 million, that was based upon the architecture's estimate of what the job would cost. And in those costs, there are, time escalations, there are contingencies, and so my guess is that those were not realized, the contingencies didn't become a reality, and we wound up saving a real sum of money that then allowed us to give that money back to the taxpayer. In fact, it's not out of the goodness of our hearts. Actually, by statute, we're required to either return it immediately as tax relief or use it for principal payments against the bonds, which is what we're doing.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anybody else have any questions or anything like that? Ms. Rendell?
I just want to say thank you. I think it's a little bit of a change from what we're used to, but I think it's much easier to read, and I liked it, so I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. If there are no other questions from trustees, then we can open up the meeting to public comments specific to the budget hearing. Okay. All right, so it's, thank you, Mr. Canellis. It's 7:32. We can open up public comments to the budget hearing only. If there are comments, please state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. All right, seeing no one approaching the podium, I will be closing public comments on the budget hearing at 7:33. And then I need a motion to close the public hearing. Ms. Calvez, seconded by Mr. Hayward. All in favor, or actually, can we call roll? All in favor? Okay. If all in favor, say aye. Okay, aye. Any abstentions or nays? None reported. Thank you very much, Mr. Canellis. All right, on to our budget resolutions. Can I have a motion to approve budget resolutions B1 through B2 as listed below? Again, it is noted that B1 and B2 do not have capital reserve items. Capital reserve. Can I have a motion? Mr. Hayward, seconded by Mr. Corey. All right.
Ms. Calvez?
Yes.
Ms. Carr?
I'll be abstaining on B1, otherwise, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Mr. Hayward?
Yes.
Ms. Scarpelli?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Ms. Rundell?
Yes.
Dr. Robinson?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Dr. Charleston, do you have a report for us today? Okay, thank you very much. All right. At 7:34, I'll be opening the public comments for agenda items only. When you approach the podium, please state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. It's 7:34.
I thought I was going to have to wait till the end, so I was like surprised. Thank you, Colleen Manley, 70 Ridge Road. I just wanted to come tonight to just acknowledge 3 people who are being discussed tonight. First, Mrs. Roche. I just want to acknowledge the tremendous contribution she made to our district. My children had her both at Coleman and here, and I got to work with her as a TikTok volunteer and just being around the school, and really admired her as a teacher, just as a person, and just a passionate, inspirational individual. Number 2, I know that Ms. Kellerman has announced her resignation, and I work with Ms. Kellerman a lot, as having been on the board for many years of the middle school, high school HSA. And she is, again, I meet with her most, but she is like the most helpful person. But every time I walk away from working with her, I'm like, that is the heartbeat of the school. And what I love about interacting with her is that, sure, she's going to help me with whatever I ask for. She will, get the answer. She will know the answer. She's been here forever. She knows how things work. I know she's incredibly helpful as the grease, as many admins are, right? Because they're the grease that keeps things moving. But every time she'll make a comment about the kids, she'll be like, oh, I don't even remember like examples, but she'll just make a comment about like, well, yeah, the kids really like XYZ, or the kids are looking for X, or whatever. Like, it always is tied back to how to make the school run better. That's on, for the kids. And so I love that about her, and I am sure whoever replaces her will have that energy and philosophy as well, but you have to recognize that when it is, because we all know when people with a long tenure leave, often a lot of invisible things leave with them. And then finally, I want to acknowledge Ms. Bacolas. I see that she is leaving. She has spent the majority of the first part of her career here, and just really want to acknowledge a lot of the contributions that she made and the important role she played, she and Ms. Kellerman, in times of tremendous change over the last 7 to 8 years. Those continuity forces are very important. So anyway, that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Manley, for your comments. All right. Seeing no one else approaching the podium, I'll say that the meeting is closed to public comments at 7:38 p.m. All right. Can I have a motion to discuss items, resolutions G1 through G12? Mr. Hayward, seconded by Mr. Corey. All right. Any discussion on G1 through G12? Ms. Scarpelli?
I just want to acknowledge the donations on G10, and it looks like it's a former principal that has donated some books too. So it's always nice to have someone that has been here in the past and retired to remember our schools and the impact they've had on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scarpelli. I couldn't have said it better myself. Ms. Carr?
I too also want to say thank you for the G10 donations. Being that I sit on the Rec Advisory Board, I just want to say thank you to the Little League for their donation of the batting cage. I think that's really great. And I just wanted to wish Ms. Begg's family my condolences.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Carr. All right. Are we able to call roll on G1 through G12?
Ms. Calves,
Yes.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Corey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayward,
Yes.
Ms. Scarpelli,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Rundell,
Yes.
Dr. Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to discuss B3 through B12 as listed? Ms. Calves? Mr. Hayward? All right. Any items for discussion for B3 through B12? All right. Pending no discussion, no further discussion, if we can call roll?
Ms. Calves,
Yes.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Corey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayward,
Yes.
Ms. Scarpelli,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Rundell,
Yes.
Dr. Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to discuss items P1 through P25? Ms. Stevenson, seconded by Ms. Calves. All right. I know that Ms. Manley had just mentioned some of our staff that are resigning or even retiring or transitioning into new positions, and I can personally say, thank you for everyone's contribution. And we also appreciate when it is time for people to seek new opportunities and support them in their transition. So Anybody else have anything to say with regards to P1 through P25? Ms. Stevenson, followed by Ms. Carr.
On P19, we're voting on a new head football coach. I just would like to thank Coach Kurz for his almost lifetime dedication to the Glen Rock football program. My boys played for him, and he always saw the bigger picture of not just wins and losses, but becoming a better citizen. And he was very dedicated to making sure the boys did community service and understood that the world is bigger than they are. So I just would like to thank him, and I hope he finds lots of fun things to do in his free time and a little less stress. And I'm sure Coach McCourt will do great. He's already on staff on the team, so it's nice to have that continuity.
Thank you. Ms. Carr.
Just a couple of things. I just wanted to wish Ms. Bacolas well. She actually started Glen Rock High School the same year my daughter did, so I've known her for her tenure in Glen Rock. There was never a time that she didn't greet me warmly and genuinely, and I know she's done a lot for the district. She will be missed. Best of luck in her new endeavor. Ms. Kellerman and Ms. Wolos have done just as much for the district. Administrative assistants, as we all know, do a lot more than they're acknowledged. So I want to wish them well in their retirement. And I do echo Karen. I wish Mr. Kurz, Jim, Coach Kurz, the best. Hopefully he'll come back and watch, and look forward to seeing Mr. McCourt in action.
So I really appreciate the sentiments too that both of you have expressed, and then also have to also make note that we haven't riced. Yeah, so that's why, yeah, just because of the formalities of it, we haven't riced.
Former football coach.
Yeah, so he's still technically an employee, so just so that the public is aware that when people haven't been riced, yeah. I appreciate, but now you know. Thank you. Any additional commentary regarding P1 through P25? All right, thank you. Mr. Canales, if you can call roll.
Ms. Calvez,
Yes.
Ms. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Corey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayward,
Yes.
Ms. Garpelli,
Yes, except P25 as it relates to me. Sorry, I should have said that earlier.
no worries. Ms. Stevenson,
Yes, except for P25 as it relates to me.
Ms. Rundell,
Yes, same.
Dr. Robinson.
Yes, same.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And attached to the agenda, you will see the vandalism suspension HIP reports. Barring no other further questions, we will open public comments for any items at 7:44. Just please state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Seeing no one approach the podium, we can close public comments at 7:44. Do we have any old business? All right. Do we have any new business?
So just wanted to share with all of you as liaison to Town Council that there's been a decision made that the alarm on top of Coleman School will actually be silenced during school days. And so I think that's very good news for the children of Coleman School. So
Yes.
wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand, over the years, like the Coleman Siren Committee and Mr. Jennings and the Town Council and everything, and as well as any role that you've played as liaison. So I'm really appreciative of Mr. Jennings' work as well as the work of the committee and providing the data to support this decision. And I think it is what's best for kids, as well as what our mayor, Christine, has stated. So I'm really excited actually for this, because I think it's a big win for everyone, and we were able to come together and have a decision that was made for the best interest of everybody without having any detriment to the community. So thank you for that report. Thank you. I see that our next meeting is May 6, 2024. Just a note, I personally will not be present. I'm going on a African safari vacation. Very excited, very excited. But business shall continue. We will need to recess into closed session just for a brief agenda item for us that has no action to be taken. So I just need a motion to go into closed. Thank you. Ms. Carr, seconded by Ms. Calves. And then we will close the public meeting. All in favor? Aye. Aye. No abstentions and no noes. Okay, thank you. Ms.